here we are again, and we are now sailing, let's say, towards the 19th hour of our live stream. And I'm really, really happy to be here with my friends and colleague, Ilaria Mariani. And we are now leading the conversation, and we are going to present our next guest, that is Leandro Agrò. Hi, Leandro.
Hi.
Wow, what a beautiful background. Okay, before starting with our half an hour conversation, I just want to give to our audience some information about your background. Leandro is Director of Exponential Technologies and Anti-NT Disruption in San Francisco. But he's also an IoT pioneer, a patents contributor, and also an author with more than 20 years of design and team leadership. Leandro is also the author of two very interesting books, IoT Designer, that was published by Franco Angeli, and also Internet of Humans, published by Egea. Leandro is the founder and co-author of Frontiers of Interactions, that it's a leading interaction design conference where design and technology gurus from all over the planet meets together. And just to give you some example of speakers that are included, presented their speech in this conference, there is the inventor of the TED conference, so Richard Saul Wurman, or for example, the godfather of the Internet of Things, Bruce Sterling, Kevin Kelly, and many other important and top designers from very, very famous companies such as Google, Yahoo, and Twitter. Again, you send us a very interesting statements that is, what the hell are exponential technologies, and more important, what we, the designers, should do with them. Since one of your hashtag is exponential design, my first question for you is, can you explain to all of us what exponential technologies are?
Well, thank you for the fantastic introduction, Mariana, and I'm very glad to be together with you and Ilaria. We were, let's say, we were speaking about this half an hour also in our previous conversation, and the first contribution that I would like to leave on the table is like dismantling all those keywords, all those buzzwords that, of course, are meaningful, of course, are addressing something that is real, that is here, that we should take care about. But I would like to, let's say, leave a lot of emphasis far from our conversation. So let's start with the exponential technology definition. As you said, I worked with IoT. Why I worked with IoT? Because the internet, step by step, was leaving the browsers and just walking around and becoming part of our appliances at home. Nothing new. It's like domotics, home automation, things like that, or just being part of our habits in terms of wearable. It's just an Apple Watch. So it's not rocket science. It's not dramatic. So IoT was like a natural step following the path of the internet beyond the frame of the screen. But what next? When you start to connect those objects, not only point to point, but to some kind of cloud computing solution, and you have an infinite, unlimited computational power at your fingertips, and you can leverage potentially any kind of artificial intelligence, and you start to have cameras, just a webcam, nothing rocket science, that is recognizing your face, that knows who is part of the family, who is not, that it is able to recognize it's a squirrel, and we have a lot of squirrels here in the area, or it's a person, or whatever. So all this layer of intelligence that are pretty basics are heading to your object, a series of behavior that are communicating directly with the end user. In this case, I start to think that we are nurturing a new generation of IoT object, and we need a new name because it's not just machine to machine, It is not just point-to-point detection and storage of the detection. It's something more. So why do not talk about exponential technology? Especially because if we as designer, and now I connect the second part of the question, if we had designers really take care of the great responsibility that we have, together with the great power that we have. I don't want to mention Spider-Man, but this is more or less the situation. Well, we should care about how the object that we connect to the net, into the intelligence, into the cloud computing, in, let's say, the computational power that we have, how this object actually behave in terms of, for example, of delocalization, democratization, demonetization, those kind of things that are actually some of the pillars of the exponential way of thinking. Let me do a very concrete example. If you see like a security cam before the internet, regardless the optical part of the camera, and regardless let's say the case, if you open the box and see how many components are inside, you have in front of you dozens and dozens of different components, electromechanical and electronic. Of course, the equivalent of the internet age, it's just a very small chip with an optic that is almost invisible. So this is part of the dematerialization as well as of the digitalization of the project, of the process of the product. So you talk about the digitalization when actually you are focusing about what this kind of object is bringing to life in terms of feature. But dematerialization, it comes a little bit earlier when you start to dismantle the things that are inside the box and start to have other components instead. And for example, the camera, it is just the beginning. And of course, also demonetization is part of it, because in the moment in which these kind of cameras of new generation, it becomes with less components, let's say the bill of materials has inside things that are pretty common to find. Well, the price of the same result, a security cam, it becomes cheaper and cheaper. In the service, for example, to record 24/7 the whole things that are in front of the camera, it becomes cheaper and cheaper. This is part of the demonetization process, and of course you can create a business on top of it. And we could start to talk about democratization more or less in the same way, because years ago, of course, very few people had a security cam at home. To do what? To protect what exactly? And now it's so natural to have it. Here in California, I don't think that we have any home that do not have at least a connected doorbell, but in general, 3-4 dozen of cameras for any reason, just because they were cheap, just because they work with iPhone, just because it is cool to buy it and try it. It's well, let's say the motivation is mainly different from the past, and the things that we can build a society on top of all those cams that are in the hands of people are pretty remarkable. I could make some example later.
Okay, thank you very much. If I can ask you, sorry, Ilaria, I don't know if you have any question. Talking about the democratization, because do you think also the fact that some technologies, let's say, or empowered objects are spread in a specific, for example, region or area of the world is connected also to a specific cultural environment? Because now you were talking about the security camera, and you were saying that in California all the houses have security cameras, but for example, if I think about Italy, it's not something so common. So I was just curious about the
context
connection.
dependency.
Yes,
the context dependency.
I mean, what do you think?
Well, of course, well, California is pretty different than Italy. In the suburban lifestyle is different than the metropolitan one. So probably the right way to tell the difference is starting to talk about the fact that most of us here in this area are living in single-family home. So in Italy, we call it villino.
Yeah.
With a backyard and a front yard and things like that. While on the other side, when we talk about in Italy, we do not have these habits. Maybe we are thinking about the apartment and people that live in a tall building. And well, also here in California, people that live in tall building mainly do not have many cameras. So what makes the difference is actually the suburban way of life. And why people have cameras? Of course, because it's suburban. There are no fence. There is anything here. But it's not just a security issue as we might perceive as Italians, like, I don't know, people that want to rob your house or things like that. This is a very safe area. But I found on camera any kind of animals, any kind. And the things that could happen are several. You know, everything here that you buy is typically coming from Amazon or from any kind of delivery that leave the box at your door. So why not to monitor this kind of situation? Later, I don't want to say that houses here sometimes are big enough to request to have a doorbell that is in some way connected. But this is actually another aspect. If you are in the backyard, there is no way that you can listen what is going on the front yard. So why not? It could be just a nice to have device that you can buy for almost nothing because it's super cheap and connect with your Wi-Fi. It's cool. You want to do it. That's Silicon Valley. It's just a common habit. Later, there are consequences in the social habits that you might have because people start to leave messages to your doorbell, or sometime in very critical situation, the doorbell, it become to be part of a sort of disaster recovery system. A few months ago, during the fire season, because we have the fire season here in California, during the fire season, several small towns were devastated by the wildfire. And what happened is that people that have connected doorbell started to share the image of the light cam of the doorbell on the internet to allow to the firemen actually to see where the fire was. And in some way, sharing this information, they were protecting their own house, but also they were protecting the whole community. And, you know, we have social for everything, any kind of needs that the human being could have, but we have, let's say, social also to create some kind of very pragmatical communication in the neighborhood, like I lost the key of the car, or anybody saw my dog around, things like that. And also, if I don't know the name of most, the last name actually, of most of the people that are living in my area, well, they could reach me anytime on those social networks that are for locals and that are working when you actually prove that you live in a specific home. So it is again very safe, very local, very relevant, and you have an impact on the community as consequence of a digital habits like the doorbell, like the local social network or things like that. It's interesting.
Well, it's very interesting because what you're saying is that on the one side we have technologies that are available so user can use them, and so they are taking place because of availability and accessibility and so on, because they are just on the market and so they can be used. Why not? And on the other side there is how this is changing the way in which users interact and use them, also going beyond the reason why they've been designed. As you were saying, apart from the camera of the smart bells, which are used for checking and monitoring and contributing, helping in the everyday life, there are a lot of different
Ilaria,
uses.
I have a short story about IoT and environment and how people can use whatever you design in a very unpredictable way.
You know that I love it already. So go ahead.
Also
I
because
never thought to share this story today, but actually it is meaningful because you say that I started to work in IoT pretty early. Let
You said
me
2006, right?
yes, and I would like to underline that this is not something smart. So you should not think that starting too early is smart. Starting too early means that you fail to reach the market in the right moment, and you probably failed the company. That is actually what was happening to us. But the 3 years that I dedicated to my first IoT startup here in California were the best learning that I could never imagine to have in my professional life. So I'm very glad that I did it. But of course, from the money standing point, it was a disaster. So let's talk for a second about what we tried to do with IoT around 2006, 2008. We were worried about how, let's say, the perception of the environment and the climate crisis was completely almost unknown. People were not worried enough, at least in our opinion, about what was going on the planet. And so we started to think that we should just connect a couple of meaningful sensors to the internet, creating an open platform in a system of visualization, of data visualization, that allow potentially to anybody that want to connect a certain detection to the maps that we were developing. We call this system Open Spine. And I'm glad that you mentioned Bruce Sterling, because the word spine, that is the crisis of space and time, was invented by Bruce Sterling. I still remember drinking a couple of beer together with Bruce in Turin.
wow, I'm really envy you now that you're saying this.
Same here.
Yes, to ask the permission to use Open Spine that was not owned by Bruce, but of course we were referring to a word that he totally invented. And so we called this technology Open Spine, and the system was able to collect the information from different sensors and put those information on the network. And this was interesting enough to create a sort of hype around our company at that time. We went on Wired magazine in US, on New York Times. We won a couple of awards, things like that. But the point is that we were trying to use the iPhone as the ultimate spine. And of course, the iPhone at the time, especially, but also today, do not have any environmental sensor. So what we could do collecting data with an iPhone, we said, well, noise pollution, it's still a kind of pollution. We might create an application that just detected the noise around you and try to identify how many decibel is this noise. And we create like a series of algorithms to detect the noise and actually make some comparison and trying to understand how loud was the volume. And we were pretty, let's say, honestly satisfied by the result. We went to the South by Southwest, for example, to present this situation. And we collected hundreds of thousands of detection worldwide, just spreading this application. It was, again, successful. In a certain moment, a famous design award contacted us to talk about this application. And the application was named Wide Noise. And well, we felt particularly proud. So we are getting a design award. This is a serious deal. And well, we had this phone call with those guys that asked us if they can actually use our application to measure how is the loud of people clapping to other projects that were part of the design challenge.
So you have a technology, let's use it for something else. That's the thing.
It was
claptometro.
So we went on the ADI Design
Index
award.
Okay.
Great. But we were also used to measure how loud was the volume of people clapping to the others.
That's great. Also because you are let me thinking about an image that a colleague of mine is showing always during the first lecture of the course, Marco Aiuvala Zitela, in order to explain what does it mean to design. And usually he shows these images in which you can see the sidewalk, so where people can go, and then the fact that people are used to cross let's say the backyard, the grass, creating a new path. So the fact that even though you are designing something with a specific idea in your mind in order to, for example, satisfy a specific needs of people, well, probably the final user can also decide to change a little bit your idea or using in a different way your product.
But Mariana, this is exactly what leads us again to talk about the exponential artifacts, because when you say, for example, that you want to democratize a certain technology, actually what you are doing is to accept the fact that user might find other alternative path, and you think which those paths could be and how to empower them, creating with your technology whatever they like in terms of potentiality. And the way to reach that goal is actually starting to think that when you decide to democratize a certain technology, the KPIs, it becomes immediately different. So the number of people that access your technology, the number of people that do something with your technology, those kind of things, it becomes the center of your small project universe, and empowering the people in this sense, it becomes mandatory. So democratizing means exactly that. Do not serve them like one size fits all, or just solving the specific problem that you are targeting, but actually trying to empower them in the broader way that you can, of course, according to, let's say, the consistency with the project.
So both empowering technology and enabling technology due to the fact that it's accessible, usable, and redesignable somehow. So it's a great perspective.
Let me be very concrete on that, because maybe it might look that is generic. So I would like to make a concrete example. For example, well, in this moment in Silicon Valley, probably the louder battle between the giants, it is in trying to identify the next wave of technology regarding AR, VR. And you can see how, for example, Facebook, to make an example, is betting on VR. They have everything, but they are already, they have on the market VR a solution like Oculus Quest 2, and they have this very nicely crafted virtual world that is called Horizon. On the other side, we know that Google tried a couple of times to have the Google Glass. We know that Apple, it is crafting something special regarding augmented reality. Who knows when this technology will be available. So the great fight, it is everything about AR, VR. But what means at the end of the day? It means that you have like a three-dimensional additional layer of information that you can bring to the user in a way in which they could utilize creatively. That could be, I don't know, just a flag on Google Maps that is just saying, I don't know, free sugar with a coffee. Or something that is much more meaningful. Your friend is here, your pet is here. This is the direction for, I don't know, the new discount or whatever. So in this sense, when we say democratizing the access in this specific kind of technology, what we are saying is do not predefine all the paths that are available to this user. Double check and do whatever is possible to leave some blank space that they can walk freely in order to help your research and development and help you to get the direction when you are lost. And those kind of things are particularly relevant. So exponential could be perceived as a buzzword of something that is useless or rocket science or whatever Mars technology. Actually, we are talking first about the new generation of IoT object. Second, about a very deep connection with the user, deeper than ever, because AI allow you to read much more deeply the interaction with people. And third, of course, it is this degree of freedom, this space that is left blank to give both to the artificial intelligence and to the human the opportunity to make a step that is not probably predictable enough.
Well, actually, you are asking for a question now, and it's coming, and it's you know, we are in the university, so we need to ask that. Well, in your opinion, what do you think could be and should be the mental frame that designers should have to move into an environment where technology is evolving in this way that is exponential, but also open to changes and to innovative way of being used?
Well, it's a super complex, but there are happening too many things in the same moment on different layers, of course. From one side, I could just say straightforward that designers should do whatever they can to enter in the control room where the decisions are made and try to influence the direction of the planet in the best possible way, bringing their design ethics inside the room and balancing other forces. But let's say this is like the end of the answer. But the answer should start from something that is much, much easier. I feel that because the technology acceleration, be part as designer of any of the big companies that are creating the technology, it is very tiring and stressful because you have operatively to do many things every day, and the control in terms of productivity is super high. And sometimes I think that is maybe pointless. Try to be part of this engine that is crunching you in the best possible way. Our role as designer, it is like to have a special lens to see the world. And at a certain moment in our career, we should raise the head and see around and be good enough to help those companies, those projects to take the right direction. So being a very good executor, it is a great start, but this is not the only thing that, let's say, should be your goal in life.
Yeah, fully agree with that.
That's great. But if I can add just a reflection, because I'm a little bit a control freak, for example. So sometimes I'm not. So because I understand what is happening outside, and but sometimes it's even though I understand what should I do and what my mental frame, since we are talking about our attitude as designers, should be, it's not so easy. Also, the fact that you should be able to imagine some hole, let's say, within your design project in order to let people come in. And this is something also connected, for example, to our work as communication designer, because it's the same. Thinking about multi-channel communication, you should be able to create complex interactive artifacts in which people can be accepted. So can you just give I don't know, a suggestion or something that we can start doing? Well, also because I can grab it also
Mariana,
for my...
It's super actual. This is my everyday contribution in a company that have an incredible ability in terms of technology, and that have an heritage of being super robust and super safe. And so in this sense, balance this thing with being open, it is complex. So let me do an example. You pick a technology, whatever you like, and you have to decide if this technology is strictly B2B or it is maybe sometime open, in which way. And for example, you have this technology that could be, I don't know, a box on your desk, and you have to decide who can access to this box, whatever is it, doesn't matter. If you ask this to, let's say, the classic, let's say, engineering printing, you will find a dozen of different classes of users, each of them enabled to do very small things. And of course, when you try to create connection between the broad users that are all around the planet and those series of very specific entry door, it could be complicated. And at a certain moment, you be part of the discussion and say, you know, my name is Leandro, my family name is Agrò, my company is well known, you can go on LinkedIn and find it, So you know what happened? Anybody in the world that knows my email, because it's name.lastname@company name. And this means that everyone is sending me an email every day. Actually not. It means that I'm receiving a lot of spam. Yes. So we should talk about how to, let's say, handle the complexity that is outside, while enabling our business to reach the larger number of people and potential business anywhere on Earth, until Mars will be conquered, of course. But making all those barriers sometimes doesn't work enough. And
Okay.
I think that we finished the times, and sorry.
Yeah, no, it was great. Once again, thank you so much, Leandro, for it's always charming speaking with you, and so enthusiastic, because it's fresh air and way of seeing things, and we are super aligned with that. That said,
lucky
once
this
again,
is not 3 a.m. in the morning on my side. That's
but let's hear about it. It was an icon 4:31, by the way,
Okay,
here in Italy.
good. Okay.
That said, ciao Leandro. Thank you so much for being
Thank
with
you.
us.
have a great
Bye.
rest of the night. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.